morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. And this welcome is particularly important to me because it's the last welcome I'll be giving here for a while. It's also meaningful for me to say these words to welcome you all to this congregation because most of you should probably be saying it to me. As I've been saying for over a year, I've never been to Michigan even, and I don't know when that will change. But I know that when I eventually make it to the UUAA building, there will be a warm welcome waiting for me. Let me back up a moment. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karishma Gottfried, and this is my last day serving this congregation as student intern. This internship has been an unusual one for a number of reasons. First of all, the fact that my time with UUAA has been entirely virtual. Sometimes I forget that we've never even met in person, and other times I find it hard to believe that any of this is real at all. But here we are. It's also been unusual because this is my second summer in this internship, working remotely full-time with various aspects of congregational life. Last summer, I spent a lot of time with the children and youth and SGD programs, led a weekly spiritual practice, and assisted with Congregational Life Hour. This summer, I've worked with various congregational groups to brainstorm and update graphics, reported back on GA with our denominational connections team and delegates, and assisted in onboarding our new communications ministry specialist, Amber. Both summers, I've participated in worship services, staff meetings, and teaching classes on my favorite part of UU theology, the 5 Jagged Rocks. And between these 2 summers, I worked as communications ministry specialist. So if your inbox is full of unread newsletters from UUAA, you can thank me. I'm excited to pass that role off to Amber as I focus on my junior year at Wellesley. Throughout this past year or so, my favorite part of working at UUAA and my favorite part of UUAA in general is the people. For each person I've had the opportunity to work with and learn from, to the people I've shared a Zoom room with during social hour or a committee meeting, to each and every person who is a part of the UUAA community. You all have something beautiful here. Don't let it go. So as I welcome you to this service, I want to give a huge thank you to each of you for welcoming me. You've made a place I've never been feel like home. And just as I welcome you to UUAA for the last time for a while, at least, no promises on forever, I invite you to share with me in saying our chalice lighting words and then our covenant. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth and love, and to help one another. As another thank you for all that you've given me, I wanted to share something with you from my UU communities, a song. You might have heard this song before, but every time I hear it, I'm transported back in time to a circle at an overnight in my church in 8th grade during coming of age, listening to my friend sing the words she had learned from an older sibling. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? We're going to sing this 5 times through. The first time, I want you to listen to the words. What do they mean? How do they make you feel? Then I want you to hear the words. I am singing to you. Next, we'll sing it together. I invite you to join in singing wherever you may be. Add your own harmonies if you want. Sing as off-key as you'd like or are able to. What's important is that we are singing together. Then find someone else on your Zoom screen. They won't know you're singing to them, but you will. And you can bet that someone is singing to you. Sing these words and mean them. And then finally, the fifth time, we'll all sing it together. Just listen this time. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Now hear it. Hear what I sing. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. This time, will you sing it with me? How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Now find someone else, sing it to them. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. This last time we'll sing it all together. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected. How deeply you're connected. How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Good morning. I'm Mike Muha with the UUAA Habitat for Humanity Committee. You probably already know that Habitat partners with potential homeowners to build affordable housing. But did you also know that Habitat is committed to environmental improvement, which coordinates with our Vision 2050 goal of climate justice? Here are some examples from a recent workday.
Hi, I'm Sandy Simon, and I'm one of the many volunteers from UUAA that comes out to the Habitat for Humanity site. And today we have a good crew out here, but I also wanted to introduce you to James Hanna, who works for Habitat for Humanity Huron Valley. And wanted to ask you a couple of questions today, James, because our church, some sort of different questions today. Our church has been doing a visioning project where we've been trying to decide what's really important to us to do for the next years of working together. And one of the things that's forefront in that vision is climate action. You know, we're dealing with the climate crisis. And so when I come here to work, you're usually telling me something about these houses being pretty energy efficient. Would you tell us a little bit, are all the houses meant to be energy efficient, and do you focus on that?
Yes, so the energy efficiency in our houses is one of the top priorities. You know, it's a great thing for our organization to be able to do with volunteers, but more impactful obviously for the homeowners, having lower energy bills, lower maintenance to heat and cool their houses. And there's a number of different things that we do on every Habitat property to ensure that energy efficiency.
So I'm looking around this house that we're working on, and it looks pretty open to the breeze and the snow and everything. Could you tell us just kind of a few of the things that we're going to be doing on this house to make sure that it's nice and warm and cozy this winter?
Absolutely. So right now we are standing in the kitchen area. The exterior of the house is the focus right now with your group, and over the next several weeks. We're going to get the OSB or what looks like plywood set up on the outside, and then on top of that you'll really start to see the energy efficiency processes come through. So we've got 2-inch blue board that gets wrapped all around the exterior of the house. We put the house wrap over that, and then obviously with insulation, spray foam, caulking, we really seal the house tight, and then at the end of it we actually do a blower door test where we have somebody come in and they blow hot air through the house to see if there's any kind of leaks anywhere that we need to patch up, so that come our brutal Michigan winters, the house is going to stay warm for our homeowners. And then obviously with climate change and rising temperatures in the summertime, it's going to stay nice and cool for them as well.
And new this year, Habitat for Humanity Huron Valley is about to pilot a project installing solar panels on 4 existing Habitat homes. They hope to expand this program in collaboration with Solar Ypsilanti. Here's Rob Nisley, the housing director at Habitat, to tell us more about the program.
We partnered with a group called Solar Ypsilanti, who have put solar on many rooftops throughout the community. And Solar Ypsilanti, the city of Ypsilanti, and Habitat now are moving towards a pilot. We've identified 4 households where we want to place solar on the rooftops. We're busily working to collect grant funds. But the basic idea is that these families will be able to enjoy solar energy on their rooftops for 20 to 30 years. We have grander plans of rolling this out to 100 households in that southwest Ypsilanti. So it's just a really great way to, help people that are already in their homes to, a lot of our work centers around energy efficiency, but here's an even better layer where we can help them to offset some of their electrical usage, help reduce their carbon footprint, help our community and things like that.
Thanks for your attention. To learn more or to help on the Habitat Committee, find us on Realm Groups, visit our website, or email us at habitat@uuaa.org.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is QuianaDenae Perkins, and I serve this community as the coordinator of Congregational Life. I want to thank Carrie for inviting me into this service with her and letting me share this last year and a half of learning and spiritual clarity. As I was getting clear, Carrie was helping me get clear, and so to be a part of this day really does matter to me. Before I begin a small sharing with you, I want to call my comrades, elders, and ancestors into this space, making it sacred, making it a temporary home. And in this way, I call in my love for my friend Madi and her son. What is calling? Calling for me is a marrow-based, metaphysical, spiritual understanding of how best to align my life and my spiritual truths. It is more than goals, and it is no less than purpose. It is not optional, and it is also a choice. This is what I know about this journey so far. My call to ministry was happening for a long time, but I didn't have the space to hear it and respond. It wasn't until I combined my passion for community organizing with the 7 principles of UU and the 7 principles of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalists that I was able to hear my call into ministry. And my first answer was many things, but the answer that I'm leaning into right now is the attending Star King School for the Ministry and submitting to the UU ministerial faith formation process. As I settle into school, which actually started back in mid-June, I started with a class called Seminary 101. I was asked to do a reflection from a statement from Baba Abraham. I want to tell you who this gentleman is and was because he matters. Baba served Star King School of Ministry as the provost and professor of Islamic and cultural studies for 21 years. He joined the Ancestors in 2016. Baba shaped Star King into a counter-oppressive, multi-religious seminary. He is the primary architect of the educational model that's used, that is transformative, global, relational, multi-theological, and adaptive approach to educating Unitarian Universalist and progressive religious leaders. This is whose footsteps I'm trying to glimpse, not even stand in, just glimpse. As I started writing my reflection, 2 answers emerged. One that was very academic and the other that was a poem. Today, I'm going to share both with you. These words will ground me and connect me in the sacred work that is spiderweb building, strengthening, maintaining, and repairing, the work that makes us a beloved sacred community. I will share the quote from Baba, then offer my academic response. I will read his words again, then share the poem that I've created called Clarity. Organic multi-religiosity interrupts practices of considering religions as monolithic, rigidly separated traditions in conflict with one another, and understands them as having complex and constantly morphing relationships. The world just became my classroom. Instead of rote learning that teaches repetition without critical analysis, I will be a part of a learning cipher that instills logic, discernment, and intention that I can apply in any setting. Most education is designed to have students be in one place with the same materials, learning the same thing and demonstrating knowledge through regurgitation. The Star King model of learning centers organic multi-religiosity, which, from my understanding, incorporates personal experiences and honors the nuance that it creates in the learner. The Star King model does not seek to produce cookie cutter ministers. It seeks to create ministers who are unified in the UU principles, but whose religious leadership is human and complex. This organic way of being and hence moving through the world has amazing implications on religious leader formation. On a practical level, it means I hold a great deal of autonomy and my path is not predetermined. It means that my process is rooted in adaptation. It means that change is assumed and welcomed, and that's what I'm here for. Organic multi-religiosity interrupts practices of considering religions as a monolithic, rigidly separated traditions in conflict with one another, and understands them as having complex and constantly morphing relationships. Clarity. I come bringing all of my gods, goddesses, and priestesses, all the ways of knowing goddess, of praising her, of naming her lighthouse instead of storm. I read the letters my ancestors wrote, left for me on the bark of old trees, on rocks along the river, on water fountains, back row bus seats, and Sunday bridge walks. I leave maps for my descendants. I name fireflies as magic we could explain but choose not to. I tell them about the time I loved them in active, present voice. I make sure they know that hummingbirds, giraffe, and moose are real. Dear hearts, I tell them, Time and gender are a construct. Go find the others and dismantle them all. Transformation is its own kind of math and magic. And to this point, I was never equal parts anything. I was always chaos mixed with melanin. I am autonomous and sovereign. I am a collapsed star and a morning spider web. I am blessed, highly favored, and anointed by my ancestors, and everything, and I do mean everything else, is simply a matter of Black joy and excellence, manifested and magnified. Ashe and amen, my friends.
Hello, dear ones. If you would join me now in an extended time of meditation, you could find a position that's comfortable for you. That might be standing up, sitting down, moving about, someplace where you can feel centered and focused and free from as much distraction as possible. It may mean turning off your video on the Zoom for this part of the service, kind of a virtual closing of your eyes. In this time of settling in, hear the words of Reverend Victoria Safford from her small volume of meditations, Walking Towards Morning. This one is called, If I Were Asked. If I were asked to confess my faith or my beliefs out loud, and I were scrambling for some place to begin, I would start in the desert, in the lonesome valley, and say that first of all and ultimately, we are alone. No God abides with us, caring, watching, mindful of our going out and coming in. The only certainty is mystery. We are alone. And because we are alone, it is the chance connections, both chosen and involuntary, that matter most of all and ultimately help and heal and hold us. We are alone, yet intricately bound, inextricably connected to soil and stream and forest, to sun and corn and melting snow. We are alone, yet bound by stories we cannot get out of, to ancestors and descendants we will never meet. And all these natural conditions, these bonds we did not forge ourselves and cannot deny, are the strands of a theology, the seeds of faith, the beginning of religion, of binding all things. When I say God, and sometimes I do, because sometimes there is no other metaphor, no other symbol, no other poetry, no other offering. When I say God, I mean that place of meeting, that place where solitudes join, the space between my hand and that dogwood, the space where the tiny feet of the ant brush the dry dirt beneath her, the space between Mercury and Venus, between electrons, which we unblinkingly believe in without seeing. God is the space in between, the bridge between solitudes, the ground where we meet, you and I, or any two, by grace. If I were asked, I'd say that all of us together are alone, and the emptiness between us is waiting to be filled. The emptiness is waiting to be filled. And in the filling of that space, we establish, reestablish, and maintain sacred connections with ancestors and descendants, sacred connections with each other who are present now. As we spend this next bit of time together in quietness, I will fill the spaces of this sacred circle with cloth and ribbons. Each of these are separate, unique, beautiful, but unconnected. And as I weave them into the spaces, the emptiness on this circle, I'm creating connection. Your presence, your being here gathered for worship is one way to fill this space. There are many ways. Let your mind focus on all the ways you create sacred connection. Perhaps you brought ice to someone who is still without power. Perhaps you welcomed someone who was new to the community yesterday at the Reconnect gathering we held here at the church. Perhaps you shared a meal with someone. How do you create connection? As Reverend Safford says, we are alone, yet intricately bound, inextricably connected. May you always find ways to create sacred space through connecting to someone beyond your own solitude. May you know deep into your bones that this is a community to which you are connected. Amen. And may it be so. As a community, we also fill space with sound, and I invite you to do so now. For our next hymn, Make Channels for the Streams of Love, know that the sound of your voice in your own spaces is sending out sound waves into the world that are combining with all the other voices singing. You are creating even more sacred connections. So will you sing now with Allison and me?
Make channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we seize such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dried. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
What is your connection to the sacred? And what does the word sacred mean to you? I've actually recently had a conversation about the word sacred with the congregants who participated in my small group for the 5 Jagged Rocks. One of the 5 Jagged Rocks, a key piece of Unitarian Universalist theology, explains that we believe that each soul is sacred and worthy. This aligns with our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, but the idea is still radical. Maybe not new, but still revolutionary. If we are talking about connections to the sacred and sacred souls, then that means that my connections to the sacred are tied to every one of my connections with you. This is what our 7th principle means when we say we affirm the interdependent web of life, of which we are all a part. When I think about connections to the sacred, connections to the interdependent web of life, there is always one memory I'd return to. It was my senior year of high school, and my fellowship's youth group was spending the weekend on the Oregon coast for our annual fall retreat. After a day filled with team building activities, deep listening, and more than a few s'mores, a group of us decided that we wanted to go down to the beach. It was 10, maybe 11 p.m., and the rest of the campsites were silent and empty. We took the winding trail through the beach grass, the boardwalk slowly disintegrating into sand beneath our bare feet, laughing and talking loudly, knowing there was no one around to make us be quiet. But suddenly, we fell silent. We had arrived at the top of the trail on a sand dune that gave way to the shoreline. We stood in speechless awe of the transcendent beauty in front of us. The moon was nearly full, enough that we could see its reflection on the gentle waves. For one long moment, suspended in time, we were all quiet. That moment was soon broken as a few of my friends leapt off the path and into the sand dunes, screaming wildly as their feet carried them to the water. I followed them down, feeling the cries escape my body and disappear into the great nothingness that surrounded us. When I got to the bottom of the dune, my lungs burned from the combination of running and shouting. I paused to catch my breath. Exhausted, I gasped for air, looking around as I adjusted to the shift in surroundings from the top of the dune to the water's edge. Besides my small youth group, there were no signs of human life or even human influence besides a distant lighthouse and a faraway ship. The sand was smooth, newly washed in with the tide, and the beach grass obscured any houses that could have been lining the shores. As I fastened my attention on the sound of the waves crashing up on the beach, my friends' voices faded into the background. My breath, just returning to my tired body, caught in my throat as I looked out at the ocean. As far as I could see in the dusty moonlight, the waves of the ocean rolled on. Although science told me it was just because of the curvature of the earth, in that moment, I was witnessing the edge of the world. There was something about the moon tugging at the waves, the stars reflected on the sea, that made me feel so very connected and so very small. I always return to this memory, the feeling of deep connection to the sacred just by simply being. Looking out at the ocean in front of me, I thought about all the life it held beneath the surface, full of plants and creatures that we don't even know about yet, that live in far different conditions than we do, but still we exist together on this earth. I think of how miraculous it is that we are all here together in this holy moment. What had to conspire for us to be gathered here today? What led you to this congregation, to Unitarian Universalism? Was it long ago? Was it recently? Was it your family, a Google search, a friendly invite? My parents were the ones who introduced me to Unitarian Universalism as a young child, and the religious educators and youth advisors I spent time with throughout the years were the ones who kept me here. It is because of all the small individual acts of those people, the encouragement, the carpools, the resources, the support, that I am able to be here with you all today. It makes me think of the butterfly effect. The theory that an act as small as a butterfly flapping its wings can affect weather patterns that, for example, can end up causing a typhoon on the other side of the world. Now, I'm not a scientist, but that does seem a little implausible. But what doesn't seem implausible is that our smallest actions can have such a great impact on others. It is through our sacred connections with others that we can change the world. I saw a comment online recently about this. When people talk about traveling to the past, they worry about radically changing the present by doing something small. But barely anyone in the present thinks that they can radically change the future by doing something small. Yes, I feel connected to the sacred when I stand on the shore and watch the moon pull the tides in and out with its force. But I also feel connected to the sacred when I watch multiple generations come together at a Sunday service. When we sing together, even if we are physically apart. When our UUAA community comes together to build houses for those in need. Each of those acts affirms our individual worth and dignity, but it also affirms our connections to the web of life. Not independent, not dependent, but interdependent. When we remember that all around us, there is sacred. Sacred oceans, sacred souls, sacred connections. If only we are able to find them. I've been able to be a part of the UUAA community this past year on staff as an intern, primarily because of internship grants from Wellesley. And I'm so lucky to have had the opportunity to learn this much about congregational life from all of you. And I hope for your sake and their sake that you will be able to take on more interns in the future, whether they be graduate ministerial interns or undergraduate students like me. If you're able to support the work of our your congregation to provide these opportunities alongside all of the incredible ministry we are already doing. I encourage you to give as generously as you are able by going to UUAA.org/giving or mailing a check to the congregation. Thank you all so much for your generosity. Your gifts are what make this community possible. It is thanks to all of you that we are able to foster those sacred connections that are at the heart of who we are as a people. I also encourage you to join Social Hour after the service at UUAA.org/social hour, where I will be if you'd like to say goodbye. And if you aren't able to make it, just know that I'm leaving on a cross-country train to Boston this evening, and I'm gonna vaguely wave at Ann Arbor around 1:45 a.m. on Wednesday morning from Ohio. Either way, please know that whether we have met individually, in passing, or have yet to meet, each and every one of you is deeply connected to my soul. Go in peace.